Okay, here I'm going to explain my case for the international courts against the Spanish government, as well as how this implicates the American government. Basically, my case against the Spanish government challenges the second jurisprudence of violence against women as human rights violations, which is González Carreño, and that's 2014. It's a CEDAW case, Conventional Elimination of Discrimination Against Women, and the unsuccessful defense of the Spanish government was judicial error and inadmissibility due to judicial error and a failure to exhaust domestic remedies. So, I mean, this was in 2014. By 2012, I had already finished all of the exhausting of domestic remedies in my case, and had already been looking for, some legal representation and to submit this to the courts. Now, the González Carreño versus Spain was brought by an organization that's called Women's Linked Worldwide. They were the lead counsel, and that is a Spanish and Colombian initiative. Now, I've been knocking at their door, and I've been calling them since 2010. Another woman, I think she was British. I think her case kind of was resolved because I haven't heard from her. I mean, she was dying. The poor woman. She tried calling him, but of course the same thing. Yeah, you can't even get past the receptionists in these places. All they care about are the bigwigs. So, Women's Link Worldwide is in hot water, because I got everything set up to challenge this case. So what I do in my case is I demonstrate that judicial errors are not errors. These guys are doing it on purpose. And fast forward, this gets into my research into family courts in crisis. Those are the newsletters. I'll attach the links to this email or to this video, and which goes into all of my research into what's happening in the family courts. So anyway, here's, again, this is all posted. It's too small to see, but here's a table of infractions that I did with my lawyers in Spain, because really I've concentrated on the fault of my lawyers to effectively defend my and my children's rights within the case. So it gets into, it's too small to see, but the Spanish Constitution, their penal code, their civil code. Within the civil code, there is a whole section on marriage and, the rights and obligations, as well as accessing financial records for wives. I mean, it's incredible because it's all written in the civil code. This is one of the problems that I've had doing this globally under universal jurisdiction, is finding some sort of code or legal, as I say, it's codes, it's not laws. I'm going in more to the codes and the constitutions than laws, because for the international courts, that's really what the issue is, and where the concern, where my argumentation, gets traction. So that's why, I mean, at the national levels, I don't even get into it. I'm like, I don't care if you are violating constitutions or international conventions or penal codes or civil codes. That's where my focus is. So that's, there is an Equality Act there, the deontological obligations of lawyers. Again, I'll show the attachment there. But, you know, I mean, even Maria Jose Carrascosa even said, where did you get this? Who did this to you? Or who did this for you? I said, I did it. Here it is in black and white. Now let's go. No, she's too busy cashing in, just like everybody else. So that's where the focus of my case was with, and I knew from the beginning. I mean, I've lived in a Machiavellian world all of my life. I saw right, I mean, the file clerks, the BS on Montesquero or something. I mean, you go to, you know, you need a paper, you got to do this, you got to do that. And believe me, the Spaniards, oh, do they love bureaucracy. And making you run around like you're with a chicken with your head cut off. And playing games with you. And, you know, this is what's getting people so pissed off. They just want to go, they want to get, you know, their paper and not be... I saw the same thing in the D.C. landlord-tenant courts. So, I cover the judicial errors are not errors. These are misogynistic games of family court lawyers who are just in for the money. I mean, when I got into my research on what was going on, and this is what's incredible, everything's there. All of the evidence is there. It just needed to be put together, and it needs to be submitted. So, then we get into exhaustion of domestic remedies. Oh, I knew this was coming. I mean, I started in 2008, but I knew this was coming. So, I go, guess what, you people? I exhausted remedies that you didn't even know existed. So not only, of course, when I was there in Spain, I mean, I went through the mujeres divorciadas y separadas. Oh, this is the big wig. I went down there I don't know how many times. And all the others. I mean, I went down to everybody. Nothing. I mean, mujeres divorciadas, all she cares about. When I got in, finally, I think the third time, I'm actually meeting with this Congressman, I forget what her name is. And she arrives with her ladies in waiting, and I'm like, okay, I think I see the picture here. Then I get a meeting with her, because I've already been down there I don't know how many times, and nobody's helping me. I'm like, all I need is the name of the lawyer who will defend me, and believe me, every victim out there will tell you that. We need lawyers who will defend us, because they just screw us over. And that's why it is so important for lawyers to start putting their money where their mouth is, in that they are a self-regulating profession and therefore don't need regulation, because nobody's self-regulating. I've spent the past 15 years showing that. So, like, then I get into the meeting with this Carmen, and I walk into her office, and all I see are photos with her shaking hands with minister this, minister that. I'm like, look, I've been working in the NGOs, particularly for women, for a long time now. I see what's happening here. Okay, I got the picture. I even went down to Amnesty International, Spain, because by this time I'm doing my own research and looking into all of the reports from them about human rights violations of domestic violence cases in Spain. I mean, all the statistics are there, the reports are there. 3 times I go down to Amnesty International Spain. Finally, after the 3rd time, I get a response of, oh, human rights violations only happen in Darfur and Sudan. I'm like, okay, you guys, let's just put you in the courts as well. So by the time I get to the United States, I've already, my lawyers have finished screwing up the whole stuff, and I know they don't understand, and I'm going to have a whole beef with what happened at the end. You were just busting our chops. You were just busting our chops, lady, on going after money that wasn't there. First, I said, I want to see every single financial statement from the day we were married. Not the stuff that he's saying there's nothing here. I mean, are you people idiots or what? That's why I took Jorge Capel, the Cuatro Casas. At the end, I said, I know what they're doing. They're going to take my kids. What I need to do is get the money, get global expats. My kids will be 18 soon, and then I'll move forward, and you know, they'll come with me. I see what you guys are doing. I'm not stupid. I know where I got to go. My goose was cooked there. Now I got to concentrate on the financials. And anybody says that I am just chasing money and I'm just a gold digger, one of the first lawyers, well, actually by this time I guess it was the fourth, that I met with was Jose Prado. And I would advise anybody to go with this lawyer. He's one of the only people in Spain. I mean, okay, he's not with he's not of the altura to go to the international courts. But if you need a lawyer in Spain, go with him. My ex was panicked. Oh, he was following me, you know, cyber stalking me, everything. I had a private detective following me. My bodyguard in Bogota taught me to watch for all of that. I saw it. And I said, no way. Because the thing that he said to me in the interview, and I mean, I go in and there's like all of these immigrant people, and I'm kind of like, okay, I mean, is this the lawyer that I need? But it was. Although, if I had gone with him, I think I would have been murdered. So I think, you know, water under the bridge. I think it was better that I didn't go with him. But the reason that I didn't go with him was that the first thing that he came out of his mouth was, oh, your husband's with bank or with BBVA. Oh, he's got to have lots of money. We got to go after money. We got to go after money. And I was like, no, this is not what this is about. This is about, you know, because actually I didn't want to start divorce proceedings because of the violence or because of what he was doing to try and destroy my company. It was because in 2007, I saw that another collapse was coming. I mean, I'd been changing diapers. I had been involved in Bogota with you know, the networking and the expats, and so I hadn't even, you know, I mean, my ex would bring me the newspapers, the Wall Street Journal occasionally. I mean, over the years, believe me, before the internet, we Americans really would go for anything that they could get on information. But you know, I had been out of the game for a long time. But I was doing an examination of the currency fluctuations. I was doing Spain, Argentina, and Colombia. Currency fluctuations got a little convoluted with Spain because you had while the peseta changed into the euro. And, you know, people are like, what? But I'm like, no, if you follow the exchange rate, you'll see what I'm talking about. And how for expats, buying abroad is increasing your risk because you're dealing with, particularly if you're in middle income or low income countries, you're dealing with huge, potentially huge currency fluctuations at the same time as real estate prices collapsing. And in fact, I used the case in Bogota. I guess the apartment, we had even talked about this several times over the years. Well, why don't we buy these places, rent it to ourselves, and then we can pocket the money that the bank, the company is paying. And we end up with a lot more equity at the end. But I don't advise people to do that. And this is exactly what I get into and why I got into this examination and explanation. Because, for example, our apartment in Bogota, I think it was like $1 million when we moved in. But if we had to sell it, so we would bought it at the top and had to sell it because we have to leave the country because you never know. And at the bottom, we would have ended up, I forget the numbers, if it was 20 or 30% of our investment. If we had been in Argentina, that thing collapsed for 90%. So this is what I went into, and I started looking at the economics and the different things, and I said, oh Lord, this house of cards is going to collapse. I can't believe. And see, the thing is yeah, okay, I don't have a PhD, but no, I'm really smart. I mean, I hate people who are arrogant about it, but I am. I mean, I do have my father's brain. And he was so smart because he was humble and always questioned. But so, my international econ class, 85 at GW, everybody told me, drop it. Everybody fails. Even the econ majors fail at least once. This is like impossible to pass. Easiest course I ever took. Easiest. I was working, full time between school and working. I would sleep, 6 hours a night and then be either working at restaurants or in class that last semester. And so, I was exhausted. I know the guy, he thought I was falling asleep. I wasn't falling asleep. And the first 15 minutes, he explained everything perfectly to a T. It was the easiest class. Didn't have any outside reading. Did the 15 minutes. Whoop, I got it. And then I would listen to him. But this is where he lost his people. He would go convoluted. Anyway, it's a long story. I got a 90, well, it should have been a 99. I got a 98. I still contest that on the midterm. And I turned around and I taught it to my classmates who all had failed the midterm. And they even asked for a curve, and when the teacher said no, somebody got a 98, they turned around and looked at me, and I was like, sorry, if I had known, I would have gotten some answers wrong. We could have had a curve, because this is not difficult. And I tutored my classmates, and they all passed. Not everybody who asked me, and I gave them my notes, and I said, here, it's nice. And this is not rocket science. Harvey Eisenberg. You may have, I don't know if you know of him. He's one of the top merger and acquisition lawyers in this country. And he was at GW my freshman year at Mitchell. And really, very brilliant guy. Very brilliant guy. He's gotten in the wrong crowd with the merger and acquisitions and the bankers, and I want to have heart to heart with Harvey. But, Harvey's from, it's another rags to riches story, and I understand, when you're born with all of that and have all of that all your life, you're not impressed. In fact, I was always pretty disgusted. So let's get back to my case, sorry. So I know the econ. And I saw that this was going to collapse. I saw it clear as night as day. And that's why I said, because he had, again, invested everything in stupid stuff. These are bankers. They should know better than this. No, it's all high risk, high yield. And I said, you're going to lose everything again. You told me you lost everything years and years ago, and I still want to see all the numbers, because I still haven't seen it. And they told me, the lawyers told me the only way I could get access to those records was, and control of the money. I mean, this guy had been losing it for the past 7 years. And yes, I was panicked. He's trying to kill me. I'm panicked because any kind of financial security that we might still have, he's going to crapshoot. Yes, I was panicked. But when Jesus Prado was like, he wanted to start a war, I said, are you kidding? He already wants a war. I'm trying to find somebody to defend me, not enter into this war. I was never successful, as all the victims will tell you. So, in exhaustion of domestic remedies, I filed, Instituto de Mujer. They said, oh, we don't do that. I was like, huh. When I got the email, I said, well, you do now. The Defensor del Pueblo, I kept on there. That's the ombudsman. And I got several back and forth exchanges with them. The Consejo de Poder Judicial, several, filing. As I say, I'm doing it on my own with I'm fluent in Spanish, but my written Spanish is kind of like a fifth grader. Then also, I guess one of the most important also was with the Bar Association, Colegio de Abogados. So that comes back and forth. I mean, this has taken several years to get all of this back and forth. I think I finished that in 2012. And the Bar Association, I mean, it wasn't, these were things put together because the responses were always nonsensical. But basically, the Bar Association of Madrid contends that it is the right of lawyers to violate the rights of their clients under the principles of judicial independence. When I saw that come back, I was like, oh, Lord, you people, your goose is cooked. Thank you very much. Come on board. Now, at the same time, when I saw that the Spanish government was, screwing me around right and left, I went down to the consulates. So the consulates wouldn't help me. The French nationality, or the Americans. I mean, they hung me out to dry like you can't believe. And they do have an obligation under their obligation to protect. And then they have the ways and means of fulfilling that obligation through the Vienna Convention on Consular Relations. And I think it's Article 5, which I believe comes under the custody issues and the children. Then 36, 37, I don't remember all of them off the top of my head, it's all in there, which, provides them the means and ways to protect their citizens living abroad in judicial and extrajudicial proceedings. So, the obligation to protect is there. The ways and means to do that is there with the Vienna Convention of Consular Affairs. The problem is the good faith of anybody in the American government to protect and defend their citizens, whether they're living abroad or whether they're living in the United States. So what does the American government exist to do, is my question. Isn't that what the Constitution is about? Isn't what the federal government is about? I mean, I know the debate is going on now with Trump, but I've been, I know it's been a monologue, but I've been pulling this one out for 15 years. So with the United States, so when I get back to the United States, going through all of the other, trying to survive in this cesspool of Washington. Keep a roof over my head and some food on my plate. I mean, this is ridiculous. I can't get a job because I'm a white American woman, who's out of their game. So then I start with the State Department. And I go through the consular people, getting names, and I get the run around. I got everybody's names, letters and letters and letters. The American consulate in Spain is not doing its job. They've got to get on, because this is while I'm doing all of the exhaustion of domestic remedies. They've got to get on all of the agencies in Spain that I'm writing to and tell them, people, you better start reading what she's saying. And you better start doing your jobs. Because this woman's not screwing around. Of course, nobody in the State Department knows how to read. Nobody in the State Department understands anything about their obligations under the law, whether it be U.S. federal law or international law or any other law that exists in the world. I mean, I want answers. I want answers and answers and answers. Because I'm not alone. We have 7 million Americans living abroad. And I've even, I have had some people come to me with cases. I mean, not many. Because I explain to them, all I can really do is what I've done with my own case. We go to the State Department, consular affairs. I mean, by the time I got to the end of the State Department, I just worked my way up. Okay, you're not going to do your job, I'm going to go to the higher up. And then I'm going to go to the higher up. Then I'm going to go to the higher up. Then I'm going to go to the higher up. And it works it all the way up to Secretary of State. I don't think I got Clinton in there, but Kerry, because I hadn't gotten up that high yet. But Kerry's in there. Tillerson's in there. As I say, Pompeo's not in there, but he's easy breeze, of course. And at the same time, I'm sending letters to the White House. Let's see, there's Melaine Verveer, Valerie Jarrett. I don't know, there was a whole slew of people with the women's stuff. And Carrie Bettinger Lopez. She was a logical person. People kept on saying, why don't you take your case, for Carrie Bettinger Lopez to take it to the international courts? I said, I've contacted her. I've sent her I don't know how many emails. Nobody ever responds. I will contact her again. Then I turn around and I find out she's in bed with Biden. Oh, great. She gets appointed, she takes the case to the international courts against the Americans. That was our first jurisprudence. Gonzalez Linehan versus the USA Inter-Commission on Human Rights. Inter-American Commission on Human Rights. 2011. This is typical. So she gets the rah, 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 rah of, you won that one, because the defense of the American government on that one was that the federal government, the U.S. federal government, doesn't have control over its courts at the state level. And I said, because by this time I'm involved with the activists and going to the demonstrations, and I'm trying to explain to the ladies. I said, well, ladies, my God, if that's the American defense, that they don't have control or they don't have jurisdiction over their state courts, then the raison d'etre of the American government is null and void. And the federal government is null and void. So let's attack them on that one. I mean, none of these NGOs, none of these people, I keep on saying, are you kidding? Go and talk to Rambo. Go and talk to, Muhammad Ali. You get into a fight, You get into a battle, you keep on punching, you keep on punching, and you keep on punching until you have them down on the ground. You don't throw a punch and then get everybody to go rah, 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 and then go cash in on it. You gotta go after those guys and on their jugular. Like a pit bull. That's what I've done. Well, you people screw around my kids, I promise you. I go for the jugular. I don't let go. You think pit bulls are bad? You haven't met me yet. So, and it's not just my kids. It's, I mean, my Lord, everything that I'm reading and everything that I'm seeing. I mean, this is what my whole life has been about. Combating all of this. This is disgusting. I mean, what people are doing, their children, there's no right. There's no right. And their wives and their husbands. So, you know, this is not difficult. It's just we need some real lawyers who are interested in jurisprudence and not just some money or you know, making a name to help their career. So, I mean, you know, I have this argued to challenge, you know, both the jurisprudences with everything that I've done. So I'm at the White House. You know, nobody ever reads into that anymore either. Gosh, nobody knows how to read in this city. Had a whole bunch of PhDs and MBAs who never graduated from kindergarten and still don't know how to read. So of course, what I do is take my case and anybody else who comes to me, I say, okay, we have to go up to Capitol Hill to get them to obligate the State Department to start doing their job. And the White House, by the way. We all see what's going on there. So in my constituent request, I got Senator Landrieu from Louisiana, who kind of replaced Bennett Johnston because he was no longer around. Although I did contact Bennett Johnston back in 2007, and he hung me out to dry, just like Jennifer Shaw, my friend from Foxcroft. Her father is, well, now deceased, Congressman Clay Shaw from Louisiana. He was the author of the Missing Childs Act. Well, believe me, the poor case that I have in Japan, I was speaking to him recently, and he says, you know, the Center for Missing and Exploited Children are just trafficking children. And I said, oh, yeah, we all know that. And Jen Shaw is sitting, you know, like a little Miss Muffet sitting on her tuffet. Yeah, she was in the Foxcroft reunion video in April, the Zoom video. Now they can't go out and schmooze at Foxcroft, so they're doing it online, so that I can afford. But she's there. I'm like, oh, great. I asked her for some help in 2007. I said, please, Jen, you know, would you please just ask your father to pick up the phone, call the American consulate in Madrid, and say, look, this woman is not crazy. Her husband is trying to kill her. She's terrified. And they're screwing her over. Would you just please do your job? I asked the same thing of my mother, who has close ties with John McCain. That was when, you know, John McCain, this is 2007, and John McCain's running for president. I told my family, I said, my God, her friend, it's a good friend of hers, Mike Helen, who was one of John McCain's campaign advisors. I said, please, Mom, all I'm not asking for favoritism here. I've never asked for favoritism anywhere I've gone. All I'm asking is what is my due right. But see, abusive mothers are the first to assist the abusive husbands. Believe me, I think they really enjoy this. Really, they get an adrenaline high. Psychopaths, that's how they work. I've seen my older sister. That's what's been going on as well. So anyway, it is what it is, as they say. See, this is where I'm like, okay, it is what it is. I mean, I'm not going to change my family. But I'm sorry, when I'm working in a work environment and the managers are freaking crazy and everybody just says, oh, it is what it is, I'm like, oh, no. That I can do something about. My family, I think, is beyond hope, fortunately. So that's pretty much my case. So I had Senator Landrieu. Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz actually got a I need a couple of spokes from a cigarette from that one. A constituent letter from me, because my mother was a big supporter. I mean, by this time they're destitute and they've got peanuts that they're giving. So of course the Republicans. I mean, my mother has been very involved with the Republicans and the Arizona Republicans dating back to the 60s. Big supporter. Goldwater, I mean, you talk about extreme right. That's why she never wanted me getting into politics. She knew. Because she always tell me you never fail at anything you do. So she knew I would bring down the little house of cards that she and all of her right-wing extremists want to hold up. And there are many in my family. Right-wing extremists or left-wing extremists. I think I'm the only one that's center. So believe me, I know what's going on in the mind of all of the factions. So, nobody wanted to help me. So anyway, the constituent, I think that's about it for my constituent. But then for other cases that have brought to me, I've gotten a constituent request for Barbara Boxer. I think Hoyer also got a letter. I don't know. There's various in there, but the point that I make is we submit the constituent request, and all of the NGOs and all of the activists keep on telling me, well, if you know they're not going to respond, why do you spend so much time writing, these letters and you're quoting, and because I just quote the laws. I mean, I don't come crying to them saying, help me, like everybody else. I'm like, no, I know that's not happening. So from day one, I'm like, no. I'm going to look at this myself from top to bottom. Believe me. I got the brains to do it. I knew that. I was like, you people, you think you're dealing with some brain dead Stepford wife idiot. You've malcalculated your game. Because that's not the reality. So let's see, 20 years without smoking, and look what it. So we get all of the constituent. Oh, Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes Norton. Oh, I got her on all sorts of stuff. Because I've been living in D.C., so this also comes under all of the stuff, all the problems that I've been having in D.C. and labor rights violations and housing rights violations. And I've been down there. When it's applicable to Capitol Hill, I take it to Capitol Hill. When it's applicable to the constituent request, I go down there. And it's a bunch of idiots sitting around doing nothing. Saying there's nothing we can do. I just gotten to the point where I'm like, okay, give me your card, please. And I have your name when we get to the courts. That's all I can do. And the most horrific case, I think, I mean, they're all horrible. They're all horrible. But it's this, it's on War on Domestic Terrorism. When you scroll down on the right-hand sidebar, it's this case in Japan, Jimmy's Wish. It's not a custody a battle. It's, it's one of these, it's so convoluted. I mean, poor James Ryan, when he brought it to me, he kept on sending me all of the documents, and people send this to me, and I'm like, wait a second, you guys. I don't have the resources, particularly all by myself, and I'm trying to keep a roof over my head, to look at this. And I believe you. It's not that I don't believe you. I believe you. Nobody's going to make up this stuff. I mean, my Lord. You little ladies are really crazy. I mean, I know you come up with all sorts of stuff. Believe me, when I get involved, I mean, with my mother, it was constantly, where's the truth between all of the pathical lies that's going on? And women lie. Women lie all the time. My favorite was I was watching the movie with Phyllis Schlafly. Very good movie. I forget her name. I like this actress. And one of the things her husband says is, well, don't lie. Don't make things up. Well, it sounded good. Yeah, well, it sounded good, but it's not true. And when you say things that sound good but are not true, then people say, well, that's not true. It destroys your credibility. Women don't understand that. They really don't. They really don't. They really don't. I keep on telling everybody, I'm like, look, you gotta keep, you gotta look at everything. But in your cases, you gotta keep a straight line. Because if you don't keep a straight line, when we try and challenge this, they can attack us on stuff. And this is what I tried to explain to Aaron Eddy. Oh my God, that was a horrible case. It's in Arlington. I did a court watch on that. I mean, this brings back my own trauma. Believe me, when I went through 2016, I got Hillary Clinton. I got all, I had too much on my plate that year. But it just came. And my landlord, I started at $750. I paid Jack. This is 18 months. $900. Okay, I'll pay. $950. Okay, I'll pay. No, $1,800. No, lady, I'm gonna see you in court. Enough is enough. And of course she was coming after me because she's black, I'm white. I had been fired by the IMF. I couldn't get a job. The other little millennial who's jealous as hell I'm living with is, stoking the whole flames, trying to get me evicted. And all I'm trying to do is warn the world that if Trump gets in, we're up a creek without a paddle. I think later they're too busy playing games with me to care. And they're in the development community. Don't even get me started. Okay. So Eleanor Holmes Norton is, up a creek without a paddle. And believe me, I've done extensive investigation into her and her career. Basically, one of the things that really needs to be done with the lawyers is go after the alpha dominance feminists. And for example, I need there needs to be against NOW, National Organization of Women. They do this court-wide project under Renee Beaker. I've been trying to talk to Renee Beaker for years. They're all up in their ivory tower. Then you got the Feminist Majority Foundation under Ellen Moore Schmeels. When I started in my investigation into the feminist movement, because I always thought the feminists were like men haters. and I saw, wait a second, you got Now that opened up with Betty Friedan and Eleanor Schmiel and their whole band of people. So I guess that's in the maybe 60s, 70s. But then in the early 80s, Eleanor Schmiel starts the Feminist Majority Foundation. What catfights went on amongst those founders and leaders? I've been involved with catfighting women long enough to go, oh gosh, what's going on there? Well, I found out in the interim years. And that's why when the Women's March started, I'm like, I'm not even contacting any of these women. And of course, the infighting is there and it's being exposed. It's same things going on within the feminist movement, within the domestic violence movement, just the backstabbing fish. Everybody just wants to get their book published and get on the podium, just like everybody else, just like at the IMF, just like at the World Bank, just like all of the NGOs. That's all it's about. That's what really needs to be attacked. And this was initiative of the Koch brothers. They saw it. They in their little plans back in, this goes back to the 70s. Jim Marrs did a good book on the Fourth Reich, the rise of the Fourth Reich, and Jane Mayer, Mayer, it did a very good job with Dark Money, and it really brings what the Koch brothers did together. The evidence is there. All the evidence is there with all of these books. Just needs to be brought together. So, this is Congress. Congress is not, I'm all over the map with all of the different cases and all of the different people up on Congress. They're not doing their jobs. So I guess that basically is in a nutshell, if you will. Sorry, I know this is convoluted, so I guess I've been going on for over 3/4 of an hour on just the challenging of the González Carreño and how it gets convoluted when we get into when Americans abroad, and this is not just applicable to custody battles or any kind of family courts. This is applicable to any other court. What was her name? The case in Italy. Oh, the young woman. It's not coming to my mind. It'll come. Who was her roommate got killed, and then she was arrested, and it's Amanda Knox. I mean, if you looked at the facts of that case, the judge was freaking crazy. The whole thing was crazy. Absolutely crazy. And where was the American consulate? The second that girl was no longer considered a witness and considered a suspect, the Italian police had the obligation to notify her of that and notify her rights and notify the American consulate and ask for, under the Convention of Vienna, under the Convention of Vienna relations, consular relations, to have a consular representative at every single judicial and extrajudicial proceeding, along with her Italian representation, so that everything is documented and everything, and if there are any irregularities whatsoever, or craziness, because that's what it was, the consulate's on it and saying, no, you're not doing this to our citizens. It's the same with Jimmy Ryan in Japan. I mean, the poor man, when he contacted me and I told him I didn't hang him out to dry and say, oh, there's nothing I can do. I'm too busy. I got to go to a meeting right now. I told him, no, of course. This is the American consulate who has an obligation to go after every single little, corruption thing. I mean, they tried to kill the man. He got away, he said, because he's American and he's big and they weren't used to wrestling and killing a big man. What they're doing to that poor child, his poor son. The man must be absolutely consumed with guilt, because the whole thing started over, intellectual property theft. He's involved in medical things and court corruption. And he said, I've been documenting all of this and I'm going to go after you people. And that's when he tried to kill him. And when that didn't work, they tried to kill his son. His poor little son, who was a special needs child, who was in the hospital. And they put a bag over his head to suffocate him and try and frame the father for it. And the consulate, oh, there's nothing we can do. The poor man, I mean, he's been living the same hell I've been living. His hell is worse than mine. I mean, to see your poor child, this is Auschwitz type of things that they are doing to this poor child. I pray to God, I say, God, you gotta have a special place in heaven for this poor child. What he suffered. So, that's kind of how I get into, the father, he said, look at the videos, look at the photos. I said, I can't. That was one of the things my father taught me, that, you can help people, you can really try and help people, but if you get too emotionally involved in all of their own pain, you won't survive. You want to work with other people's pains, you gotta try and learn to separate yourself a little bit. It's not always easy. So that, that kind of is the crux of what I'm trying to do with my case for the Americans abroad against the American government and the State Department. And this is an exemplary case, because the case that I want to bring to the American government, then I start with all of the other expats living abroad, with all of the other nationalities, and I say to all of the other governments, well, ditto for all of you guys. Now, here's your jurisprudence. Now get on the ball. I mean, the UN report on eliminating all forms of discrimination and violence against women, I think it is, even says that with the violence against women happening on cross-border contexts, there's an opportunity here for governments to hold each other accountable. This is a perfect case that would implement that in a holistic manner. Now, why is UN Women too busy with their meetings and feminist BS? They've all got in bed with the alpha dominance feminists, as has World Bank Women Business and Law Department. I mean, all of these people in these organizations, IMF, World Bank, UN, are hiding behind their diplomatic immunity and getting away with murder, literally. It's not about, Dr. Kim left the World Bank, the president, the former president, stepped down, basically he threw up his hands, and his rhetoric was on target, but he couldn't implement it because there's such power struggles between the Indian camp, the Russian camp, the Chinese camp, the Brazilian camp, and the American and European camp. They're all vying for dominance. Nobody cares about the mission of the organization. I mean, I after I finished with the Americans and the case against the Americans, of course, I tried to bring it, since I want to go to the international courts, of course, I bring it to the international community. And since I'm getting nowhere with the NGOs and the women's rights stuff, I'm knocking on the doors of World Bank particularly. But at the same time, I'm working at the IMF. I mean, everybody knows about, Lord, everybody tells me all I ever talk about are the political issues and the legal issues and the problems. I don't talk about recipes anymore. I don't talk about, how's your day? Well, I loved that. When at the Foxcroft reunion, Lee Topping Brady, daughter-in-law of former Secretary Brady of the Brady Bonds, was on the call saying, I'm good. She's in her $1 million home. Well, excuse me, the IMF just celebrated the 30-year anniversary of the Brady Bonds, and while they're celebrating, and I'm going, excuse me, that's part of the problem. And Lee worked in the financial markets just like I did before she got married. So Lee and I have the same experience. We were never friends, but we were roommates my first semester at Foxcroft. And Lee and I are not on the same page at all. And, her husband's a lawyer. So when all the House of Cards collapses, I don't think Lee's going to be sitting in her $1 million home saying, I'm good. A lot of the Foxcroft people and the yuppies and the preppies and, all who bought into the golden age and the cocaine snorting and why I left this country, the hedonism and the deb of the decade, and my sister bought into all of that. She just loved that whole Foxcroft crowd. I couldn't stand it. The pretension, the narcissism, the hedonism, the fornication, the cocaine snorting. That's all he ever did. Dwight Shaw, who's the real estate mogul. I'm sure you're well familiar with all of his shenanigans. His son, Doug, even told me one time that, about his father. And Doug, he came to visit me in Madrid when everything was exploding. I haven't heard from him since I've been back, of course, because I no longer have these $1 million homes. Same thing had happened to his sister, but he was always telling me what about his father. So believe me. But Doug, at least to his grace, one day he woke up in his Soho apartment in New York and said, this is no life, cocaine snorting and partying all night long just to wake up in the evening to do it again is no life. And he just packed his bags and left. And he said, oh yeah, the last time I saw Cornelia, she was doing a strip tease on a baby grand with cocaine lines all over the place. I'm like, yeah, you see why I left. So anyway, I that'll get in. I guess I want to discuss that in there's a lot of issues to discuss. So I'm trying to separate this down into the different ones, to keep it separated, but how they all come together. So anyway, I mean, I have lots and lots of, everybody thinks, oh, I make contacts, I got all of these networking, and then I'll be protected. I'm like, you guys, when they start coming after you, you know who your true friends are, and they're few and far between. But I mean, I haven't been surprised. I was brought up in a very, very, very Machiavellian world. My family and my husband's family, and it is what it is. But see, this is where I agree with Machiavelli. I read him when I think I would be about 16. That was also the time Colin Turnbull, The Lonely African. I would say those are the two things that most influenced me of my what I was thinking at the time about, like poverty and governance and just how the world works is what you start thinking about at that age. If you have a brain. If not, you go shopping. And my sister. I haven't smoked for 20 years. And I haven't really smoked until the past couple of months, with my parents passing and the whole drama with my family. Oh, I'll get into that. I mean, the manner in which everybody is trying to silence victims, even family members, is pretty damn bad. So, I guess that's pretty much the explanation of my case against the Spaniards and how it implicates the Americans. And I won't even get into, because I briefly looked at the French, because they are as well implicated, because I do have the French nationality and I did request their assistance. But as I say, I wrote one letter to the French ambassador at the end. Quite bad French, I know that, but I did what I could. That said, you know what? Everything I said to the Americans, ditto for you guys. I don't have time to go through, and translate all of this into French. So that's how I kill 3 birds with 1 stone. If I can just get some assistance from the legal community, I can promise you, there are no gaps, there's no loopholes. This is an atomic bomb. And it's an atomic bomb under RICO. I'll get into in another explanation of the IMF and the Institute for Capacity Development, because that's a whole other can of worms. I know I'm all over the map. And people keep on saying, you're all over the map. You need to fix on one, or I'm like, well, wait a second. If you only had one problem out there, I would only fix on that. But this is like when Bloomberg, it was some interview about his, president, and about health care, and you can only attack one issue at a time. You can't attack it all at the same time, using the example of cigarettes, telling people don't smoke. Well, this also gets into my father's research on lithium. That's a whole other can of worms. But it is, I can't stand this stuff. It stinks. It doesn't taste good. It leaves an odor. But I've been under so much stress in the past couple of weeks. I'm doing this, or I'm going to put on about 50 pounds with an oral fixation. So I choose the lesser of two evils. You don't want people smoking Stop throwing with so much stress. Yeah, we combated the tobacco problem in the United States. Well, guess what they did? They just exported their product, found other markets. You want to go to some of these countries and see how these people are smoking? And I mean, I smoke the American spirits. I tell people, if you gotta smoke something, please try and reduce it, and do that because it's just the tobacco. It really, really, really is the killer, is all the crap that they put in there, and part of it is to make it burn faster, so of course you consume more. I mean, you should see some of I mean, in Spain, when we lived there in the 1990s, if we ever went out I mean, we didn't go out to nightclubs. I mean, I had worked my way through college in those places. I was like, no, I'm not into this. But, you know, occasionally we would go out, or the tapa bars. I love the tapa bars. But you would come home. I mean, we would have to go out onto the terrace, take off all of our clothes, get in the shower, wash, because it smelled so bad in your hair, you couldn't sleep until you got rid of the whole odor. So, you know, we were attacking it in the United States, but they were exporting it and making lots of money in other markets. This has got to stop. Same thing happened with the baby powder for, you know, mother's breast milk. It's disgusting. Yeah, I guess I'm getting off the track right now. But, so that wraps up that. And I guess I'll get into other stuff. So, thanks. Bye-bye. Have a nice day.